let's talk to a couple of gentlemen from Utah. Utah State Representative Ken Ivory and his colleague in the Utah House, Representative Kevin Stratton, the chair of the Commission for the Stewardship of Public Lands. Ken and Kevin, to you both, thanks for your time and joining us there from Washington, D.C. this morning.
Thank you.
You betcha.
Good to be with you.
It's great to have you. Ken, you
Thanks,
sponsored.
JD. You know the issue so well, being from Arizona.
Well, that's why we want to have a chance to explain it to the rest of America here on America's Forum. Ken, you sponsored that bill to return the land to Utah's control. Make the case, help people understand the history of the land and why Utah should control this land in Utah.
Thanks, JD. As you pointed out, more than 50% of the land in the western United States is controlled by a federal government. The promises, the terms at statehood for Utah, Arizona, and all the West are word for word the same as states east of Colorado, where the federal government controls less than 5% of the land. The Supreme Court just last year said the equality, the constitutional equality of the states is essential for the harmony of our very republic. And yet when you see that $150 trillion in minerals locked up in federally controlled lands, where 95% of the rare earth minerals that run our national security, renewable energy, electronics technology come from China, they're locked up all over in the western lands. And worse, JD, as you know so well, under federal management of the forest, the forests unfortunately are being managed for maximum combustion. You had 500,000 acres burned in Arizona, burning millions of animals, destroying watershed for generations. What we're trying to do here is help our federal partner focus on those things that only it can do: world peace, a sound monetary system, and allow the states to manage land that they already manage. We already manage millions of acres, and focus on those whose lives and livelihoods depend upon the land, who are more responsive and responsible in managing land.
Kevin, as Ken was talking, we were looking at some striking scenes from the western United States, but this is not about running roughshod over national parks and not all monuments. It's really just a question of people closer to home controlling land within their sovereign borders. Historically, was this because of the Civil War? In essence, did western states have to give most of their landmass to the federal government as a form of dowry to help deal with the Civil War debt? Is that what this goes back to, Kevin?
It actually goes farther back than that, JD, to the formation of our country. It was a pattern that took place as each state came in the Union to pay for the war back of the Revolutionary War. So it's a pattern that's been repeated throughout time. You're right, and I appreciate you pointing out the notion of the public lands. We're not talking about taking our public lands and privatizing them. We have such great, in the West, such great beauty and contrast in our landscape, and we want to, in fact, we want to do more to protect those lands and make them available into 7th and 8th and generations and further for those that are yet to come to enjoy these pristine lands that we have.
Well, Ken, you've said before that the federal government has been unwilling to set a date for the transfer, so you're happy to move forward without them. Now, we heard Rob Bishop, your friend and mine there on the Hill. Is he helping you work through the opposition, or what resistance are you expecting from the administration and perhaps from Congress?
You know, we just came from his office, just coming here. Yeah, there's a lot of work to do. As you know, there's a big educational lift. We've got to get people to understand, you know, the statehood promises are the same. JD, this has already been done before. At one point, Illinois, Missouri, Arkansas, and of course, JD, you know that great western state of Florida? They were as much as 90% federally controlled for decades. And they sent resolutions to Congress and said, we can't educate our kids, we can't grow our economy because you're controlling all of our land. They banded together, compelled Congress to honor their promise of statehood, simply looking at the same thing. So Congressman Bishop, very helpful. Our delegation, Senator Lee, very helpful. Other states, 6 states have taken legislative action on this. JD, the state of South Carolina has done a resolution supporting the transfer of public lands to western states. National Association of Counties, American Farm Bureau, it's part of their national platform, because it really is the only solution big enough to get to better access to our lands, better health of our lands, and better productivity for a nation languishing with $18 trillion in debt.
Kevin, as we think about this, because we've been involved in politics, and sometimes it's explaining things. Is the term public lands a term that's incorrect because people back east, oh, it's like a public park, it's like a public library, when in fact we're talking about federally controlled lands. About a minute to discuss that topic.
You know, I appreciate that, JD. When we talk about the states' rights and each state being equally yoked across state lines, we look at what takes place in the East. It's hard for someone to really understand what it means in the West. And one analogy I often use is go home tonight, take Roundup and spray it on 66% of your lawn, rope off your driveway, not horizontal, not vertically, but horizontally, and rope off 66% of your home. The reason I use 66% is that's what the percentage of land in Utah is federally controlled. And see how productive you can be in your home, and see what it's like to have your lawn mismanaged and not have the access. So when we talk about it, it's really in the East, really, federal ownership is the federal courthouse downtown. It's when we do talk about public lands, though, we need to make sure that we are clear on this issue, that the public lands, the treasures that we value, are going to be enhanced and strengthened, not diminished when we talk about the transfer of public lands. We're talking about the transfer of management from the federal government to the state. And it's a little bit like this. If you have a garden in your backyard, who's better to apply the proper water, the proper
It
seeds?
should be the gardener. That's right, Kevin.
the
Not your
gardener,
neighbor.
instead of not somebody calling in from the East Coast
Exactly.
telling me what I ought to do. So those are
Unfortunately,
a couple of analogies.
we got it, guys. Ken, Kevin, thanks so much. Our time is up. We'll touch on the issue again soon, and America's Forum will continue following this Newsmax Now update.